Welcome to webinar 3, Ready to Scale, from the Scaling and Replicating Program series for Frontier Incubators. This is Sam from the Social Enterprise Academy, working with Village Capital and the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And this week we're joined by Deepak from Village Capital.
Thank you, Sam. Pleasure to be here.
Today's webinar is all about being ready to scale. Whatever your chosen pathway, whatever your model for growth, there'll come a point where you need to make sure that you are ready and fit for the journey ahead. Many of you are already scaling your organizations and in the thick of running your operation. And that means that you've already got one job to do. And so becoming ready to scale often means that you have another couple of jobs, looking at new markets and making sure your organization is ready as well. So and that's what this webinar is all about, just making sure we get that sorted out. So the outcomes from this module are to look at the viral tool from Village Capital as a method of visualizing and sharing organizational communication for the stages of readiness and your own journey to scale. We'll also be looking at how we build resilience and the internal capacity of our organizations to meet those challenges. And that'll be a theme that comes up through the rest of the webinars as well. And so we'll start to consider where to put our energy, our limited energy, in order to set up success. This is where this webinar fits as part of the overall series of 6. And as I mentioned, it's building on the topics from webinars 1 and 2 in assessing our current readiness state and making some strategic choices about how we design our organizations. So we're going to build on that work in this webinar. And we'll be looking at more marketing and resourcing and investment and how we sustain this in the webinars to come. For now, I'll hand over to Deepak to take us on a journey to scale with Viral.
Thank you, Sam. So I'm going to start with talking about Viral, Venture Investment Readiness Awareness Level. And this is basically a framework for early stage startups that helps them benchmark progress and set strategic milestones in their journey to scale. So I'm going to introduce this framework to you and share a little bit about it that will hopefully be helpful in your work with entrepreneurs. And then we're going to talk about how this framework could be applicable to you as an entrepreneur support organization. So basically, we're breaking this up into 2 parts. One, introducing you to a framework that would be valuable, hopefully, in your work with entrepreneurs, and then talking about how similar framework thinking would be helpful to you in your journey towards scale as an entrepreneur support organization. So we start with the framework, which is basically a self-awareness tool to assess your progress, identify key milestones you need to achieve. In the case of early stage startups, this would be to achieve your next round of capital raise and ultimately build a profitable business with a successful exit. For an entrepreneur support organization, this would be about identifying key milestones you need to achieve in your path to growth and self-sustaining growth. All right, and consistent streams of revenue, either from your own internal operations or from funders who are able to continue supporting you because you are hitting certain milestones that are relevant for them. So how do I use Viral? How do I use this framework as an early stage entrepreneur? I basically have 8 categories into which I can break my business down. So I have team, problem and vision, value proposition, product, market, business model, scale, and exit. As an early stage entrepreneur, I'm able to look at my business through different lenses, different parameters, and here are 8 primary parameters that Viral works with. And then on the y-axis, as I level up, when I move from Viral 1 to Viral 9, what does this mean? This basically means different stages of my maturity as an organization, different stages of my growth. So for example, level 1, very, very early, I'm basically just establishing a founding team. Level 2, I'm setting a vision. Level 3, I'm solidifying a value proposition, so on and so forth, achieving product market fit, validating customer interest. And finally, as a startup, you have an exit in sight. You have a liquidity event of some kind in sight. How do you define each of these levels. So you have 8 categories and you have 9 levels, but how do you know when you've hit a particular level in a particular category? Here's what we do with the viral pathway when we work with basically allow you to map your journey from level 1 way up to level 9. And when your organization seems to adhere broadly to the definitions that are outlined at level 9, then you are probably in a position to go out there and look for an exit for an early stage startup. This is likely in the form of acquisition. And that brings me to the piece where you use viral to actually improve communication between yourself as an early stage startup and investors or other large stakeholders as well. That's the right side of the grid, where what you can see are different kinds of funders, right? You start with friends and family at the bottom, and then you move up to angel seed funding rounds, and then you go up to institutional funding of different kinds, and then finally going back up to level 9. As an early stage startup, you're ready for a potential liquidity event, which is likely an acquisition. And so what viral really helps you do is to map your journey through different milestones by using certain fairly broad generic definitions that you can customize to be better aligned to your own business model and to your own final exit outcome, whether you want an exit in the form of an acquisition or whether you're looking at exit as an event that actually allows you to expand beyond a particular large geography or expand beyond a particular already large customer base, expand to multiple customer segments, however you define exit. Viral basically is a tool, allows you to benchmark your progress through the different levels and get to that high liquidity event that you want to get to. And as you go along, viral helps you get a sense of what kind of investor would work best for you at each of these levels. And the definitions in the center of the grid broadly just allow you to align what's going on with your business to what level you might be at. And these definitions could be customized to particular subsectors, to particular business models, to particular business conditions that or market conditions that you operate in. But what we've provided here are a generic, fairly broad set of definitions that allow you to start benchmarking. So that's what we do with the viral framework. And when you level set, what you ideally do is for each of the categories, you identify a definition going up the y-axis that seems to suit what your company is at right now. And then you circle that, and then that is your level for that particular category. So for team, in this particular example, the company in context here is at level 5. But for problem and vision, they set themselves at level 6. For value prop, they set themselves at level 6. But then for something like validating an investable market, they're dropping below and setting themselves at level 4. So what they're basically saying is, well, our value prop and business problem and vision are currently stronger than our team. But our team in turn is stronger than our hypothesis around what might be an investable market or not for our particular product. So viral basically allows you to set your level for different parameters within your business. And it really allows you to go deep inside and get a very, very micro view of what you need to work on in order to get to the next level. And so typically when a business, when an early stage venture level sets using viral, they would consider themselves overall as an organization comprehensively at the point that is the lowest viral level for their parameter. So in this particular case, the organization should ideally consider themselves as being at level 4, maybe level 5, but definitely not level 6, because only 3 of their parameters match to level 6. The ideal would be level 4 and moving towards level 5. So from level 4, moving up towards level 5 should be where they consider themselves at. And what this means is that they should ideally put more work into validating their market, and they should put a little more work into proving their business model, rather than at this point trying to beef up their customer segment or move beyond early adopters, because the basic pieces of whether the market opportunity is large enough, is investable enough in typical VC terms, as well as whether their own business model in terms of unit economics is sustainable. Those pieces are a little shaky at this point. And so trying to move beyond early adopters without having those pieces solidified in the first place is going to create problems further down the line. And so therefore that is what Viral allows you to do as a company, is to step back and look at specific pieces of your business that need attention in order for you to get to the next level before certain other pieces of your business that might be already fairly well set. Now, how is all of this relevant to an entrepreneur support organization? As I mentioned earlier, the tool itself is something that should ideally be helpful for you in your work with early stage entrepreneurs. And I'm happy to talk more about Viral separately, or we can share, Sam and I can share resources that would be helpful for you to learn more about Viral. But for now, I'm going to shift the lens a little bit and urge you to think about your path and process towards scale as an entrepreneur support organization. So if you were to apply a similar framework to yourselves, how would we think about it? Let's stick to the expansion of Viral venture investment readiness awareness level, even though investment readiness may not be the ultimate goal for an entrepreneur support organization, but growth is, right? So instead of 8 categories, we are looking here at 7. We're looking at team, vision, value proposition. We're looking at product, but in your case, product might also be defined as programs or services that you offer an entrepreneur. Then we look at market, then we look at business model. And finally, I'm combining scale and exit from the original Viral framework to define this as growth in the case of an entrepreneur support organization. So what does Viral actually help you to do? Let's revisit that a little bit. As you grow your business, these parameters help you to assess your progress, identify key milestones you need to achieve to raise your next round. And in the case of an entrepreneur support organization, the next round could be donor funding. The next round could be a certain degree of sustainability from your own internal operations. It could be a certain monetization model. So next round is defined in different ways for you as an entrepreneur support organization. And ultimately build a growing, profitable business, which is what you would want to do as an entrepreneur support organization or as any business. So now let's look at each of the parameters. Let's look at a few guiding questions that could help you benchmark where you're at for each of these parameters, right? So let's start with team. What are some of the questions you could ask as you plan your journey for your team, for the quality of your team from a level 1 to say a level 9? Can your team deliver results as it grows? So for example, you have a great team right now, but as you add more people to your team, how does this impact the efficiency at which results are delivered and the quality and type of results that are delivered? Can your team make the right hires? This is directly relevant, as all of you know, as senior management and founders of your organizations, all of you know that this is directly relevant to how you may or may not deliver results. So can your team make the right hires? As you grow, what risks does the organization face that requires new team members to be better than the founders at addressing or mitigating? So how are you planning out beyond the circle of founders, senior management? And finally, does the organization have the ability to execute on their ambitions to deliver value to entrepreneurs? So what are the skill sets? What are the constraints? What are the roadblocks that the team might face? So for example, an example of this, you could have a great team. You could answer the first 2 questions, say, yes, this works. But then you might find that the third question requires you to step back and think a little bit about maybe bringing on an external consultant for 3 months in the year. Right? So these are a few questions that could guide your thinking, and you're welcome to add to these, and we'd love to hear from you if you do add to these, because that'll help us really flesh out the framework for entrepreneur support organizations and make it a lot stronger. Moving to the next parameter, sample questions for problem and vision. Well, are you solving a big problem for the ecosystem? Is it possible to make a true dent in the problem? Is there a problem that is really solvable? Right? So for example, if you're saying that the problem I'm addressing is unwillingness in my geography of entrepreneurs to be coached, well, then I would ask the question, is that a problem that can really be addressed? Is it an attitude, a mindset problem that is more relevant to an education system than to an entrepreneur support organization? No, I don't know. It's just an example, but It's not just enough to define a problem in the ecosystem. It's also necessary to take a realistic stab at understanding whether that problem is solvable from within the ecosystem, or do you need to do something from outside the ecosystem. Why will your solution win out over the competition in the next 3 to 5 years? What's your differentiation now? Or if there is no differentiation now, what is the differentiation you're working towards? Does someone on the leadership team or the program team have entrepreneurial experience? And what do you think are the top 1 or 2, 3 short-term outcomes that you want to achieve over the next 12 to 18 months that really lets you understand whether you are moving towards your vision or not? Let's look at value proposition. So now you're coming down a little bit from the vision, coming to earth a little bit and saying, well, I have this vision, this grand problem that I want to solve, but what is the specific pain point that I'm solving for my customer, for my entrepreneur? How am I delivering measurable value to help my entrepreneurs grow and scale their business? So it's not just enough to say that you're solving a pain point. There has to be a direct correlation, a qualitative correlation maybe, but some correlation between what you are delivering and the ability of the entrepreneurs to grow and scale their business. There's got to be some connection that makes an entrepreneur feel that what you're delivering actually helps them grow their business, right? So direct impact on revenue, direct impact on metrics, impact metrics maybe that they want to collect, direct impact on customer traction, customer experience, direct impact on team quality. And then finally, is your solution differentiated enough that your target entrepreneur, your target customer will choose it over your competition? And will you get the pipeline of entrepreneurs that you really want to work with and that your product or service, your program is best suited to? Now let's come to your product or programs. Let's call it programs in the case of entrepreneur support organizations. What's going on with the program? Do you have user feedback? What have been the main positive and negative points of feedback? How have you evolved over time in response to market needs? What are the gaps specifically on your program delivery team? Do you have people who can facilitate? Do you have people who can facilitate such that they can respond to real-time questions from entrepreneurs from their own real-world experience as an entrepreneur? Do you have a person like that on your team? And finally, does your product or program have any inherent defensibility? Whether it's a particular brand of content that you have branded, so to speak, or whether it's a particular tool, is there anything inherent? And this could be a tricky question for those of us who are in the entrepreneur support space, because so much of what we do is around content and how the person who receives the content actually uses that content and how they iterate it back into their work on the ground is something that requires a lot of tracking and monitoring, and it's sometimes difficult to build any kind of defensibility around what you're offering, because it is so customized from recipient to recipient when they actually take it back to the ground and use it. But that said, is there any kind of inherent defensibility that you can find? And now the market. Do you understand the target customer, and do you also understand the market opportunity? Is it a large enough market opportunity? Are there enough entrepreneurs out there of the kind that you want to target? Will they pay? If they won't pay, will someone else pay for them? And what is the market opportunity that you have around that target customer? How do they hear about you? How do you sell into this market? How do you sell your product or program to the people who you want to support, to the people who need to establish for themselves that there is value in what you're offering? What other stakeholders do you engage with? Who are the funders? Who are the corporate partners? Who are the investors who come and meet your entrepreneurs and provide value to them through your program? How do you get buy-in from all these stakeholders? What are you seen as in this market? What is your positioning, and how does this help you capture the market? What is your value in this market? What is your differentiation? Okay. And then having identified the market, identified the customer, what does your model look like? How do you sustain yourself? Are you able to attract funding? If not, why? Why do you think so? What partnerships do you currently have in place, and what do you need to scale up in the next 1, 2, 3 years? And then finally, having addressed a lot of those questions, if you come to growth and scale, what are you going to do with everything that you've addressed through the parameters that we just discussed? what is your expansion plan? Are you thinking across geographies? If not, is it a different kind of expansion plan? Are you thinking of going super deep with a particular type of entrepreneur, particular geography? Are you able to support entrepreneurs as they grow? Are you a valuable partner along their journey beyond an initial connect in the early stage, or any other particular stage that you're focusing on? Are you able to expand your offering? Do you have value for the entrepreneur that allows them to be your loyal customer for a fairly long period of time? Is there a concept of lifetime value, or as close to it as you can get, with the entrepreneurs that you work with? And finally, does your product get easier to use? Does it improve as you scale? Is there a network effect? Are there feedback loops that help the product just get better? How do you make sure that the scaling is relevant to the end user? It's relevant to the entrepreneur. So these are a few questions that would ideally help you set your path to scale, understand the direction you need to move in, understand the priorities that you primarily need to address. And as I mentioned earlier, we'd love to hear from you on other questions that you can think of, or on ways in which you might modify these questions. And we'd love to add that to the viral framework and make it much more relevant to you than it probably is right now. And now I'm going to hand over to Sam for the rest of the conversation.
Magic. Thank you, Deepak. Excellent. And Viral just is such a great tool for having those conversations in your teams and seeing something that's really visual in understanding where you are on your path to growth. So great questions there that we can all use to hopefully consider what is the relevant information or the relevant milestone for our organizations. So please do bounce off those and create the viral framework for yourselves. Interesting to note the readiness level there for scaling right at the top before the exit for entrepreneurs. And if you attend and have a look at what are in those boxes there for entrepreneurs, and define for yourselves in terms of scale, whether your programs are working in multiple markets, whether you've got the customer base growing, is it month on month, or is it quarterly, or what's the right pace for your organization? Lots of things to think about. And are you getting good customer feedback? Things like that. So worth a conversation across your organizations, so that we're looking about how ready are we, and are we actually in that scaling category? But I want to talk a little bit more about resilience internally, because it's not just a logical process. It's not just ticking boxes. This is a really tough thing that we are all engaged in growing our organizations. It often seems like just follow these steps and we'll build an entrepreneurial support organization just like that. But it's actually quite tricky. One little metaphor for you as well. Question: if you ride a bike or if you're changing a car, when do you change gear? When's the right moment to change gear? And the answer is often before the hill. If you're halfway up the hill and trying to change gear and add more fuel to the vehicle or whatever, or get into the right shape, and you're already on the journey up, it's an awful lot harder. So things like the viral framework, helping assess where you are on this journey, mean that you can try and get the right ingredients in place to build a resilient organization as you grow. And it's very much something that we've learned as we've been growing the Social Enterprise Academy, that the resources you need to take on before you really grow will keep your internal staff healthy and everybody focused on the right things, because we all have limited energy. So building on the viral framework, just a few slides on looking at where we need to put our energy for success as we're growing our organizations. And I have three main topics. First, or piece of advice, first, finding your core in order to focus your energy. So key question, what is your core? And when I'm talking about core here, I'm referring to it as defined in Disciplined Entrepreneurship by Bill Owlett from MIT. And in this book, he really refers to the core having three defining tests. Number one, what's unique about what you're offering in terms of your programs or model. So often we understand that as our value proposition. And secondly, what's important to your key customer? Do you know who your key customer is and what they're buying from you? So those two are pretty common things that we'll all be familiar with, and we should have already have defined by this point in terms of scaling. But the third test, what's growing over time? That is often a really hard thing to figure out. If you think that your value proposition, for example, is a really great product, like a really good material or resource, if that's not growing over time, then it's not your core. So what else is growing over time about your model? Worth to think about, and please do join the seminar to discuss this further, and we'll help to figure out what our core might be. Once you know that, you can also be thinking about making sure you've got it beyond the business proposition. What is it that's essential in your core that's helping you to deliver improved impact? And once you know that, you can really focus your energy on building and making more resilient your core, because that's what's going to give you competitive advantage and keep you ahead of your competitors. And again, in viral, one of those questions is your brand established with hard to beat partnerships? If you've got a strong core, it means you're going to be hard to beat. You're going to be seen as a market leader, and people won't be able to just copy your IP and beat you in your market. You'll have some other competitive advantage that is keeping you ahead of the game, even as an entrepreneurial support organization. So making sure we've got the right evidence for our core is crucial, and you'll all be good at collecting evidence, I'm sure. But again, referring to some of the materials on the Frontier Incubator's website, Nesta report and Scaling Pathways, just making sure you know what sort of level of evidence you've got, and is this evidence demonstrable? Have you got test cases? Are you winning bids and winning contracts to deliver work that's giving you the opportunity to demonstrate this can work in a new market, and that you can test your theory of change wherever it may be? This is an example of the Social Enterprise Academy theory of change, where we've designed it like almost like a canvas, where we can fill in all the different elements that different learning cohorts may need, and it's mapped to a usual logical framework style, but it's also based on the Kirkpatrick model of training evaluation. Again, some sort of theoretical base that gives us an awful lot of evidence that we can collect routinely and then across many different markets to test. Second, it's all about the people. Of course it is. People and partners. Who's on the bus? Who's inside your organization? And as you're starting to grow, you may find that you are responsible for running your current operation, also developing new business in new markets, and also then building your organizational readiness and systems, processes, product range in order to enter those new markets as well. So you're not just doing one job, you're doing 3 jobs. So as you're growing, make sure that you are backfilling yourself to make sure that your existing operation stays viable and stays focused on what it needs to do in it to survive. And that if you are responsible for scaling and replicating into new areas, that you get the space and the energy to be able to focus on doing that. The alternative is to bring in a new team to replicate or to scale what you're doing into new areas and make sure that they have the space to do that. But either way, you need to stay joined up in building the resources of the existing organization in order to grow. We'll be talking about this more in the next webinars as well. But people and partner selection is therefore key, getting the right people on the bus to do the job. In the Social Enterprise Academy, again, a few examples. We've built many different frameworks and different tools for helping people across the organization talk about who it is they need to select, and having those conversations around what development needs, personal development terms, or in professional development terms, we need to apply to our facilitator networks, our mentor networks, our internal staff. Having the right organizational appraisal and people appraisal policies and documents in place will help people at all levels to support the growth of the organization. In terms of replication, if you are looking at replication in licensing or franchising, your partner profile is one of the most crucial things that you can attend to and figure out who is the right partner for you. On the right of the screen here, you'll see an example from Social Enterprise Academy's assessment of different markets. Can we enter the market? Is the market ready for us? And can we find a good local partner that can operate our model? And how do we assess that local partner at different stages, and how to put enough energy in that allows you to get to the next stage without having to go too far down a process before realizing that actually it's not a viable market or there aren't any partners that we can find. And often those criteria come down to leadership, come down to entrepreneurial culture, and come down to values fit in how they want to support entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Once you've got the right people, it's all about keeping them focused. And many of you are already very clear on your organizational values, beliefs, and the behaviors you want to see in your organizations. As values-led organizations trying to change the world, I'm hopeful that all of this is already in place. If it's not, there's a whole bunch of questions there to make sure you are all clear on what your model is. And I know that many times we've written all sorts of stuff down in our organization, and it's not necessarily communicated well to all parts of the organization. And it can receive challenges when it is, just to make sure that we're on track with our values. So every now and again, even very mature organizations need to check in on this kind of thing. So please do make sure that you've got it sorted out and clear, because in terms of scaling, one of the key things that is needed to keep organizations focused are a set of simple principles that refer to your journey to scale and that help people all the way through your organization take decisions together, from the board to the leadership team to the staff, that keep you focused on that core, keep you focused on your scaling mission, and give you criteria for helping to make decisions without having to put too much burden all on the leadership team to make those decisions at the same time. So thinking through as an organization, what principles is it we are using to grow? For example, that might refer to a mindset for staff. It might refer to, is it impacting on your cohort? So the cohort's the most important thing. In the Social Enterprise Academy, one of our key principles is learner first. Our learners are our priority. And in taking any decision, any member of staff, are they thinking about the impact on the learner before anything else? So think through a number of different principles that will help your organization stay focused. And that will keep you your energy lean and on task. Building routines and rituals is absolutely crucial if you're going to grow. Automation being the ultimate example of the routines, but rituals within your teams, just keeping them healthy and keeping them focused on what it's like to be a part of your organization. And again, keeping them simple, super simple. Many of these frameworks and grids are really helpful and useful, and metrics are essential in what we do, having the right evidence, but it can all become very complex. So as we're growing and involving more and more people, having really simple routines and rituals will help us to keep focused and keep us healthy. So whilst we haven't got too many people in our teams, or as we're growing, the more of these you can put in place before your scaling journey really gets too far underway, the healthier you'll be throughout. So just a quick recap on what we've been talking about. No matter what your scaling strategy, hopefully this webinar is all about looking at tools to help you share and communicate around your organization where you're at in your stages of readiness on your journey to scale. And we've been also looking at how we build resilience in terms of the internal team with a few tactics around people and principles and the different models we're using. And we've looked at where we might put our energy for success. Please join us for the seminar for this third stage of the webinar series, where we'll go much more deeply into these different topics. And have a read of some of the other reading. If you'd like to go deeper on viral, there's good guidance online and some good examples you can read. There's also disciplined entrepreneurship from NIT to dive into. And the work from Spring Impact, looking at investing in social franchising and replication, also drives into some of the topics that we've been looking at there around reasons for success and for failure for organizations that are trying to replicate, and making sure that you have got yourself in a good, ready state is absolutely crucial. So again, worth a read. There'll be more reading recommendations added to the Google Drive, so please do refer to that, and we'll post that on Slack as well. And we're also posting a couple of case studies as well for people to refer to as we go through the webinar series. So for full learning value, there's a couple of activities if you'd like to engage with them for this module. Firstly, readiness and continual assessment, using viral, apply that to your organization. Is it useful? Can you create new definitions for each of those boxes which apply to your organization? And then do the exercise that Deepak described of leveling yourselves as an organization. Where are you, and what else do you need to get in place as you scale up? And what, crucially, does that scaling level look like for you in your intended pathway? And see if you can use that as a tool to help communicate with your board, your teams. Secondly, that focus of your energy. Can you define your core? Have you done a potential profile for partners in different areas, or staff or agents that you're going to need to take on, or your market assessment? And have you as an organization really got a clear set of those values, beliefs, and behaviors, and most importantly, principles that focus on your scaling and what is going to keep you healthy? So if you have time and would like, please do engage with that. Have a think, either on your own or as a team, to apply some of that learning for maximum effect. That's us for this webinar. So next time, please do join us for webinar 4, in which we're considering pace to scale. Here we're looking much more at markets and customers, that process of routinizing replication or establishing a team in the new areas, how we go through all of that, and how quickly can we go to make sure that we are sustainable and successful in our scaling journey. So thank you for listening. Please do refer to any other resources back on the Frontier Incubator's website, which have been fantastically curated, and in particular going back and looking at some of the other modules that have been filmed for different webinars. And also keep tuning into the Scaling Programs channel on Slack, where we'll post any updates. Please do add any questions that we can consider together on there as well. But thank you for your time, and we'll catch you next time.